Hello everyone, my name is Gabby, Master Degree of English Education from Semarang State University, Indonesia. In this very special occasion, I would like to present presentation about Pidgin, Creoles, and Lingua Franca, fulfilling sociolinguistics subject class. In this section, there will be research journal analysis according to the main topic. I choose journal from Indonesian students which research about Pidgin and Creole in Indonesia. As we know, our country is very unique because it's consisting of hundreds islands with special culture, tribes, and language characteristic. Now, let me start the analysis explanation. But before going to the main journal to analysis topic, let me introduce you about Pidgin and Creole. Pidgin means communication that develops between two or more groups that do not have a language in common. First, it is descended from English, but it's not English, and no native speakers there. And as a lingua franca by people who have no other language in common. It arises quickly for functional communication, but it has limited vocabulary and grammar and often drawn from several languages, and it compromises two or more languages. And how did Pidgin language develop in certain countries? Pidgin is influenced by many factors and situations, such as the wide trade from one to another's country or even continents. Several groups will speak different language from the original language of their own country. Pidgin happens when one group is dominating other groups with their origin language. Around 17th until 19th colonialism era was dominated in many countries. Colonials were mostly from European, they are England, Dutch, French, and Portuguese. They came to other country or continent to trade or expand their territory and government. From that era, the colonialism and slavery appeared. Many people from other countries were hired as slaves. For example, sugar colonies in the Caribbean operated by Great Britain, Spain, France, and Dutch. The slaves came from India, Africa, and other new countries. They had different linguistic background and needed Pidgin as simple social language to communicate. So we may say that Creole comes from Pidgin, which is used in long time from generation to generation. No wonder those language or Creoles can be native or official language. Based on Holmes' 1992, a Creole is a Pidgin which has expanded in structure and vocabulary to express the range of meaning and serve the range of function required of a first language. And we find many countries use Pidgin, such as Hawaii, Nigerian, Chinese, India, Queensland, Bislama. Out of our expectation that there are many countries using Pidgin, not far away from Indonesia, Papua New Guinea has it. Talk Pidgin is the most common lingua franca in Papua New Guinea because it is spoken every single day by its society. Why it is so? It is because of Papua New Guinea is the most diverse country in the world. It has more than 800 languages are spoken by approximately 8 million people. That is why Talk Pidgin is frequently used by communication with people who have different linguistic background. And how about Indonesian then? We know that our lovely country adopted and absorbed so many languages such as Dutch, English, Portuguese, Arabic, Chinese, and etc. Is this language included as Pidgin or Creole? So, according to this research journal, the researchers found the truth and gave us detailed evidence and facts. This journal is taken from Journal on English as Foreign Languages. The title is The Existence of Indonesian Language, Pidgin or Creole. This is written by Dellis Pratika from State Islamic Institute of Palangkaraya. And then, this journal told us about Indonesian language, or sometimes called Bahasa, is the national language of Indonesia. It was derived from Malay language and established as a national language in 1928. Until now, the Indonesian language keeps borrowing words from other languages. It was questioned whether the language was actually a pidgin that authorized into a Creole, since it was not only contained of Malay language but also languages that it was made contact with since colonialism era, such as in Dutch, English, Arabic, and other languages. And for the objective of this study was aimed to determine whether the Indonesian language was categorized into Pidgin or Creole. It proved whether the Indonesia was a Pidgin, Creole, or a Pidgin that authorized into a Creole. And I will explain about the background and review of literature. Indonesia is an archipelago that has many ethnic languages, spread from Sabang to Merauke. However, none of the ethnic languages becomes the official language. The country uses the Indonesian language instead. It is believed that Indonesia is one of the Malay dialects from it becomes a national language in 1928. Collins in 2005 says that since 1928, the Indonesian language has already been spread and known as the national and official language of Indonesia. Furthermore, it is not called Malay language anymore. Indonesia, or Malay language, was adopted from many languages such as Arabic and Indian. Actually, Malay language was first known in 8th century. It was found in Sumatra that there had been an ancient text written in Malay, although it is adopted Indian orthography. In the same century, the Malay language also started to renew and determine its identity. It was called the transition phase from ancient to modern. In the 17th century, the Malay language could be considered as modern linguistically. In this modern phase, the Malay language started to borrow languages from Arabic language by Collins in 2005. And the borrowing other languages tradition still continues, as it still occurs in Indonesian language. And for the research methodology, this research was called library research, which was a sequence of activity regarding the data collection, reading, and taking notes, as well as processing the data. It was conducted by collecting the data resource related to the thesis, such as a book references and journal, reading the collected materials as well as taking important notes, and processing data collection. And there are several processes of collecting data. First, the subject of this study was Indonesian language that was considered as modern Malay language nowadays. Second process is collecting the research related to Indonesian and Malay language relationship and also Pidgin and Creole from book references and journal from year 1986 up to 2016. And the third process, the references used to this research were mainly taken from Collins in 2005 and Pujusono Darmo in 2004. After all the material needed was collected, everything must have been read thoroughly. And for finding and discussion, we know this research told about Malay is derived from Austronesian language family which came from West Kalimantan and initiated a culture and created a language called Malay. From West Kalimantan, the language was widespread. Contact between local people with foreign traders made assumption whether the Malay language is Pidgin and Indonesian is Creole of the Malay language. In fact, the Indonesian is neither a Pidgin nor Creole. Malay was an original language and not a language mixture of different languages for trading process. Malay, which was used as a lingua franca, appeared to be different from High Malay spoken by the royals. Malay language could not categorize as Pidgin because, first, the first features was the Pidgin language used for limited function and domains. Malay language was not only used as trading lingua franca, but may have also extended to the domain of agriculture, fishing, hunting, and others. Second, Pidgin has simplified structure and a small amount of vocabulary. The evidence of Indonesian language that has continuously increased its vocabulary can be found in Kamus Besar Bahasa Indonesia or KBBI that contain entries of modified form vocabulary. Indonesian language also observed new consonant phonemes such as F, X, and Z from Arabic sounds, for example, philosophy, syarat, makhluk, and zaitun. And Malay language could not categorize as Creole because, first, as the characteristic of Creole, Indonesia have broader function and domain, and it also had more structured grammar and rich vocabulary. However, Malay had function and domain not only in trading, but also applied in other domains such as sailing, fishing, planting, and more. It had already developed complex syntax. Second reason is Malay, at the colonialism in Indonesia, was the most spoken language. At the time of colonialization, the Dutch language had also become an important language, but it is not lose existence in the association of Indonesian people even though there are many ethnic languages in each respecting region. And third reason is Malay was used as a means to fight against the colonialism and became one of Indonesian national symbols instead. Malay was taught in schools for the army and police, engineers, health workers, carpenters, school teachers, agricultural workers, government officials, and members of Protestant Priest and Evangelist team by Collins in 2005. And in the end of the analysis research journal, the conclusion raising. From the library research, several journals and books, Indonesian language was neither Pidgin or Creole. No characteristic of Pidgin and Creole were found because Indonesia from High Malay language was used as a means to achieve independence. Thus, Malay was developed in a long history and it is still absorbed other language units. For example, like sound, lexicons, grammar, and etc. from different languages such as Dutch, English, and others. At the end of my analysis toward Pidgin and Creole in Indonesia Research Journal, we know that Indonesian language is not categorized as it. We have official and original Malay language since it was firstly used before independence and until Sumpah Pemuda on October 1928 was declared. Before knowing this research journal, I used to thought that Indonesian language is Pidgin because it absorbed several foreign languages, especially in trading and colonialism era. But this language has owned its originality. Furthermore, the researchers found that there were no Pidgin and Creole characteristics in Indonesia language based on certain references from related books and journals.